Everyone. My name is Holly Wilcher, and we are so delighted to welcome you today to the second session in our series of Virtual Infant, Toddler, and School Age Care Institute professional learning opportunities that are happening, hopefully, in a high-tech and high-touch way through our virtual institute here today. We are really, really excited about the quality improvement systems that support children across the age continuum session that we have today. This is a second in a series, and we were so glad to see some familiar names and faces from the first session, and so great to see new names and faces as well. And I am, again, Holly Wilcher. I'm the Infant Toddler Specialist with the State Capacity Building Center in Region 4. And we would really like to get to know and see you and who is on today. So we are going to pull up a little poll for you to respond to see who is able to join us today. We're going to give you a couple minutes to fill this out. You'll see a couple of different responses, and I see people are already responding. If you've got an other response to one of the poll choices, please feel free to type in your other role in the chat. Like lots of responses are coming in. Really glad to welcome all of you from state agencies, from Child Care Resource and Referral, from all sectors and settings in early childhood who touch the lives of babies, toddlers, and school-age children, and the workforce that supports them. We're glad to see you here today. Okay, and I see we've also got some write-ins here. Tribal child care providers, early Head Start coordinators, Office of Child Care, thank you for joining us. Give just a couple more seconds for completion of this poll. We've got some family child care representatives, training and technical assistants, professionals. Some people looking for their next gig too. Thanks, Lisa. We see that. A few statewide after-school networks. Wonderful. Thank you so much for participating in our first poll. It's so great to see so many representatives from so many roles across so many sectors and in early childhood and school-age work, being huge champions for babies, toddlers, and school-age providers in their workforce. Again, my name is Holly Wilcher, and I serve in the Child Care State Capacity Building Center as an Infant Toddler Specialist in Region 4, an Infant Toddler Specialist Network. And I will be introducing our moderator today, who will then be introducing the speakers. And I would like to turn it over to Susan O'Connor, the co-facilitator, to introduce herself today. She'll be monitoring your chat and responding to chat as well as facilitating the school-age follow-up conversations that are happening 1 week from today. And we'll share details of that, the follow-up conversations that will happen a week from now at the end of today's session. Susan?
Hi, it's so good to have you all on. We have about 160 people on today, so welcome, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thanks so much, Susan. All right, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about our agenda and the framework of our conversation today. We are super excited to hear some really neat and innovative stories from our state panelists today, and we know that you're going to experience some meaningful meaning making from their stories and their work in infant, toddler, and school age. And the format of this webinar today will be focusing on quality systems and workforce supports and quality systems specifically. And you're going to hear some research on both of those. You're going to hear some current trends on infant, toddler, and school age quality systems and workforce systems that support quality systems. However, again, the majority of our webinar today will include these three wonderful state presenter stories about the intimate details of the work they're doing for babies and toddlers and school agers and the workforce that supports them. And so the participants will be a part of you'll be hearing a part of the state panel discussion that will focus on these state experiences and the work that they're doing that's connected to quality systems that support children across the age continuum, infants and toddlers, preschoolers, and school-age children. So again, quality systems across the continuum, current research, then you'll hear from state panelists, and then workforce supports and quality systems, and a little bit of current research and a state panel discussion. And it is my pleasure to now introduce you to the moderator of this session, Ms. Zelda Boyd, and she is such an appropriate person to be moderating this panel. She comes from Virginia, where she knows intimately about championing for quality improvement systems. Zelda, before coming to the National Center, has spent a great deal of time in Virginia really helping stakeholders and families and workforce dream big for children across the continuum through quality improvement systems. And I've been delighted to be able to work with Zelda in the capacity in Virginia and see her work shine and do great things through their quality improvement system. And then it's been really great to work with Zelda in this landscape as well, as she's worked for the National Center on Early Childhood Quality Assurance. So Zelda, it's my pleasure to turn it over to you, and you'll lead us through the rest of the session. Thank you so much, Zelda.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you everyone for joining our call today. Good morning and good afternoon. And we are going to start our session with just a little quick review of quality systems. Particularly, we're looking at quality rating improvement systems. So I know that you're all familiar with quality rating improvement systems in your state, but so that we're all on the same page this afternoon, we're going to start looking at the definition of a quality rating improvement system. So QRS is defined as a systematic framework for evaluating, improving, and communicating the level of quality in early and school-age care settings. So it typically builds on a foundation of licensing. It has multiple steps or levels of increasing quality, and usually offers some support and incentives for reaching higher levels within the system. So the overall goal of a QRS is to increase the quality of programs through system-wide improvement. So QRS has this big opportunity and capacity to increase quality for children. It can increase parents' understanding of and demand for higher quality, and it also can increase professional development for child care providers. So there's a threefold process and opportunity within QRS. But QRS can also create alignment, an alignment between systems such as licensing, subsidy, and quality, which we know are all very big systems within a state. And it also can work across settings like child care, kindergarten, pre-K, Head Start, and early Head Start. And so today when we're talking about QRS, we're looking at it across the age continuum. So now let's spend a little time looking at some of the core elements of a QRS system. So we know that within your states, your QRS systems probably look very different. We do know that they look very different across the country, but there are some core elements that are typically found in all QRS systems. So we've put up just 5 of those core elements, one being program standards, and these are the standards that are used to assign ratings to programs that participate in QRS. So most QRS contain at least 2 or more levels of standards beyond licensing. There are supports for programs and practitioners, and this includes provider support such as training, mentoring, and technical assistance to promote participation, but also to help programs achieve higher levels of quality. Then there are financial incentives, and these vary based on the state system and the availability of funds, but with QRS financial incentives, it helps the programs improve learning environments, attain higher ratings, and sustain long-term quality. And these financial incentives can be both for the practitioner as well as for the program. So at the program level, you may see incentives that are connected to tiered reimbursement or subsidy, CCDF subsidy reimbursement, bonuses, quality grants. And at the practitioner level, you may see incentives that include wage incentives, scholarships, or some other professional development support. And then most QRS systems do have some accountability and monitoring processes which provide ways to determine how well a program meets the QRS standards. It determines how the ratings are assigned, and it can verify ongoing compliance. And this can be in the form of an on-site monitoring and the use of some tools which we'll mention later on today. And it also can be looking at documentation that's submitted to a hub or a core, the core functioning organization for the QRS. And then the last element is consumer education. And QRS provides a framework for educating parents about the importance of quality in early care and education, but it also may serve as a marketing tool for participating programs. So those are the main core elements, and they're important when we think about talking about QRS across the continuum. It's important to have just that framework. So now I'm going to touch a little bit on, the national landscape of infants and toddlers within quality systems. So historically, early childhood systems have maintained a preschool-centric focus, right? So predominantly measuring the experiences of 3- and 4-year-old children. Now, we do know that, and especially all of you that are working in school age and working in infant and toddler arenas, you know that there are just as many babies and toddlers as there are preschool age children in child care. So recently, even though this has been the trend to focus on preschool age, recently this trend has shifted a bit. And you'll hear today from our panelists how states and territories are really beginning to focus more on strengthening their support for babies and toddlers in their child care through their quality systems. So an example of this at a national level is looking at the measuring tools. So environmentally, we've seen the inception of the infant and toddler environmental rating scale, or looking at social emotional, we've seen the infant and toddler class developed over the years. And even some states are developing their own infant toddler quality measures like South Carolina. So for instance, South Carolina ABCQ has revised infant and toddler observation standards to reflect intentional teaching practices. So we do see that there are efforts at the national level as well as state levels to ensure that babies and tots are included in the quality system. So much like the landscape for the infant and toddler system, so has the landscape of the school-age children in quality systems. It's beginning to change and shift a bit. So the focus, as we said earlier, has been on 3 and 4 years old children in the development of state systems, and that's starting to shift. We're starting to see more school-age programs added to the quality systems. And even states that included school age from the beginning, they're now wanting to improve the rate of participation. What we're seeing is that even when programs can participate, because of some of the restrictions, they're not eligible for full participation, and that they're not able to take full advantage of things like tiered reimbursement or some of the incentives because of the barriers that are present. And some of those barriers that we're hearing are that many school-age programs are license exempt and they don't qualify to enter the system if the state's first level requires licensing. Oftentimes programs say that they lack resources, the motivation, or the readiness to participate, especially with the high percentage of part-time staff that exist in out-of-school time programs. So finding ways to increase school-age supports, incentives, and funding may help increase participation for those programs that are already including school-age programs. And in some cases, school-age program standards have requirements that pose difficulty, like high PD requirements for part-time staff. They're tough to meet those types of requirements, or the facility standards that are hard for school-age-based programs to reach, again, creating some barriers for participation for school-age programs. So keeping those barriers in mind, states are working on school-age involvement, and they're focusing on things like developing a cross-sector system that works well for all programs. So that would include CCDF-sponsored programs, youth development, as well as 21st Century Community Learning Centers. They're also looking at working on building readiness or developing lower stakes approach approaches, and we will hear of an example about that today from our presenters. But overall, the good news is that although there are barriers, there are also bold efforts to engage and support infant and toddler and school-age programs in QRS. So we're happy, as Holly said, to have with us 3 states today, and they're going to share with us what they're doing to work on supporting infants and toddlers and school-age programs in their quality system. So please join me in welcoming and thanking our panelists today. So I'm pleased to present to you Shonda Laurel, and she is a supervisor with the Division of Family Development in New Jersey. And Christy Moore, she's the Director of Professional Learning in Georgia. And we have 2 panelists from Washington State, Roxanne Garzon, the QRS Innovation and Birth to 3 Quality Initiatives Manager, and Angela Abrams, who is the Professional Development Administrator. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Welcome, and we look forward to you responding to some of those questions that we posed to you earlier and sharing that information with our audience today. So we're going to start with an overview of the work that's happening in the state. And Christy, we're going to start with you. Will you just provide us a snapshot, an overview of what's happening with your state's quality system, your quality rated in Georgia?
Sure. So thank you for having me and allowing me to share a little bit about Georgia's work. So just to give that overview of our QRIS, our system is called Quality Rated, and it is a 3-star system which actually has been in existence in Georgia since 2012. And it has 2 components of the rating. We have what we refer to as the structural quality piece, which is measured by a portfolio. And so individual programs who are going through quality rated, they will submit documentation that demonstrates the qualifications of their teachers and directors, and that's verified in our state registry, which is the Georgia Professional Development System. In the portfolio, we also look at child health, nutrition, and physical activity practices. We look at the program's family engagement practices. We look at their intentional teaching practices and how they demonstrate that they're supporting their teachers and understanding what intentional teaching looks like. And then we also look at teacher-student ratios. And so that is all part of looking at the structural quality of the program itself. So they submit a portfolio. Once the portfolio is submitted, then we move into the second phase, which is our process quality, which is an observation using the environment rating scales. And so those 2 components make up the 1, 2, or 3-star rating that the program receives. Our technical assistance for our quality rated system is offered through our child care resource and referral agencies. Georgia is divided up into 6 regions or service areas, and we have a CCR&R in each of those regions, so we have 6 across the state. They provide targeted technical assistance to programs. They go in and initially they'll do a baseline observation with the ERS to determine what the needs are of the program, and then they will provide targeted technical assistance to address those areas where improvements can be done prior to the rating. We are also a state that is working towards our having all of our programs that accept subsidy Georgia becoming rated. So we are currently working towards a goal that by the end of 2020, all eligible programs in Georgia that receive subsidy will be rated. And so that's a huge goal that Georgia's focusing on right now. In terms of participation in Georgia, we have around 4,600 eligible programs, and of those programs, right at 2,000 of them are currently star rated, which represents about 41% of our eligible programs actually having gone through the process and become rated. And then we have another 33% that we consider to be participating. That means they're somewhere in the process. Either they're working on their portfolio, they've submitted an application saying they're interested and they would like more information, or they're actually in active technical assistance with our CCR&R. And so we have about 26% that we still have left to recruit to get into our program who are not yet participating. So that's just a little bit of the landscape in Georgia for our QRIS.
Thank you, Christy. And you have a huge system there, and the participation rate sounds wonderful. And 26% remaining is really an attainable number, and it looks like it's something that you could achieve very easily. Shonda, tell us a little bit about Grow New Jersey Kids. Shonda, I'm not sure if your mic is on mute. While Shonda is working out her tech issues, we're going to go ahead and go to Roxanne, and then we'll bounce back to Shonda. So Roxanne, can you share a little bit with us about early achievers in Washington?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, welcome from Washington. Yes, I can share a little bit about our QRS system. We have a fairly young system. We began planning our QRS in 2007, did a little bit of pilot work, got our Race to the Top grant in 2010, and we had our first participants, our first adopters in 2011, 2012. So fairly young. We also have STAR levels of quality that are 5 levels built on the foundation of our licensing standards. And we just recently completed a large process of aligning our licensing standards, our early achievers, which is what we call our QRS standards, and our state-funded preschool standards together. So we're pretty excited. The new licensing standards went into effect in August of 2019, and we have some updated QRS standards that are going to go into effect in 2020. So that's pretty exciting news for us. In our QRS, we serve programs that are tribally based. We serve Head Start, ECAP, and licensed child care that serve children ages birth to 5. We do have some license exempt programs. Those would be our tribal affiliated programs and some of our military providers, and also some providers that are served by our school districts. And so they have some exemptions that they are able to use. We actually have 71% of all of our licensed programs participating in the QRS. And we also have been working towards a goal of having 100% of our subsidy providers participating and rated at a STAR level of 3. And our goal is to have them either rated or requesting a rating by December 31st of this year, so just coming up. And we're getting pretty close to that. It looks as though we'll be able to realize that goal in the early part of 2020. We have a set of standards that we have developed for our QRS, as well as we use the ERS and the class tool at this time to do our data collection. We have some provider supports that we provide, some incentives. We provide coaching. We provide training that are free for providers. They don't need to pay for it. We also have scholarships that we offer so that early care and education providers can continue their education. We have tiered reimbursement so that those programs that are participating in the QRS receive a higher subsidy rate depending on their rated level. And we have, we have a substitute pool that some of our providers can take part in for if they need to leave to take some training or to have some coaching sessions or to just work on their QRS participation. We also have needs-based grants that providers can apply for example, if they need to purchase more materials or they need to send some of their staff to some additional training. And we have a consumer education website for all of our licensed child care. We call it Child Care Check, where families can go online and look and see some of the different characteristics of the child care. We do have a place on there where child care providers are able to put their rating level. It is available for everybody to see, and then they're also able to go in and give a little bit of narrative about their program as well. So it allows families to go in and see a little bit more about what the program has to offer and where they might be in the system. That is all.
Thanks, Roxanne. Wow, aspirations, big aspirations, and a big deadline coming up for you, but that sounds exciting. Let's see if Shonda was able to get back on and can give us the overview of New Jersey. It looks like they're still working with Shonda on her on getting her volume up. So we're going to go ahead and move forward and talk a little bit about specifics with Christy and Roxanne about their infant and toddler focused work in their quality system. So Christy, I'm going to start with you. I know that you have been really excited about Project Little, and I'd like for you to share a bit more of that with our participants today.
Sure. So Project Little is our targeted focus on supporting infant and toddler teachers or programs across the board in understanding how to build language and literacy skills for infants and toddlers. So Little stands for Lifting Infants and Toddlers Through Language-Rich Environment. And it is a program that is offered to programs that are rated either a 2 or 3 star in our quality rated system. So we consider this to be part of continuous quality improvement after the rating. So programs can apply for a 1-year grant with an opportunity to extend into a 2nd year, where they can receive funds from us to support their infant toddler teachers in many different ways. This is a very intensive professional learning focus for infant toddler teachers. We provide professional learning from our staff. Our infant toddler specialists here on staff at our agency provide intensive professional learning for both teachers and directors in the center. So all the infant toddler teachers in the center receive training on understanding how to build language and literacy skills for infants and toddlers, primarily focused on responsive interactions. But we also provide that training to the directors, because it's important for us that the directors also understand the content that the teachers are getting so that they can become instructional leaders in the program and really understand what they should be looking for when they're going in programs and what quality, meaningful interactions look like with infants and toddlers. We also, in addition to providing those face-to-face trainings, we also allow them access to an online training that is available through the Cox campus, which reinforces that content and makes sure that the teachers have access to that content. If they forget something, they want a refresher, they always have it available 24/7. And then we also train a coach in the center. So the part of the grant funds allow to support a salary for a peer coach who actually is in the center. This is someone typically who is has been a infant toddler teacher who comes out of the classroom and then becomes the peer coach. So we will actually give that individual training on how to coach, what it looks like to provide job embedded supports, and then our infant toddler specialist comes alongside that peer coach to actually coach them through how to coach, if you will. We also have access to professional learning communities for those programs, and training is very intensive. The idea here is that we want to build strong capacity in the center and do it in a way that is sustainable, so that when the grant ends, the program has supports in place to continue this without us having to continue to be a part of that and support them on an ongoing basis. I see that there's a question here about family child care providers, and that is a great question, Mary Beth. And so we have done a small pilot this last year with a group of family child care providers to understand what their experience is in Project Little, and we are doing research throughout all of Project Little to better understand which pieces of the professional learning are the most meaningful. So I don't really have a lot of information, unfortunately, to share with you yet of the impact on family child care providers, but we have done a pilot with them. And Little, just to refresh, stands for Lifting Infants and Toddlers Through Language-Rich Environments.
Thank you, Christy. And I see that there's lots of activity in the chat pod. Please continue to add your questions and comments, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can today, but also reminding you all that we will have a follow-up webinar where you have more opportunity to ask additional questions. Well, thank you, Christy. Roxanne, what's happening with the early achievers in supporting infants and toddlers?
Well, I do love to talk about it, and though you only gave me 3 minutes, I'd happy to talk about it for 3 hours with anybody who'd like to know more. So we do love acronyms in Washington, and so we have our Birth to 3 quality initiatives, which I'm going to abbreviate as B3QI. If I throw that acronym out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. So again, this is even younger than our QRS. So in 2014 is when some specific infant-toddler coaching came into our QRS system. And so we have a certified and trained coach specialist network. We currently have 30 coaches that are in this system, and we have coordinators as well. 28 of them are only half-time, 2 of them are full-time, and they do provide on-site coaching to teachers in the classroom. And so this is a little different than our QRS coaching, which tends to be more focused on global quality, because these coaches are specifically working in classrooms with the teachers. We do offer it statewide. Washington is a large state with a couple of mountain ranges in between. And so we do have some remote areas that we provide this coaching in, but we do have an equity focus, and so we are very concentrated in some of our urban areas, but are also going out to our rural areas. And our coaches are bilingual. We have a large Spanish-speaking community, particularly on the eastern side of our state. And so we do have coaches that are bilingual that do provide those services. So we have somewhere in the range of more than 4,500 facilities, of our facilities, providing early care and education to children under the age of 3. And out of those, we have over 3,000 in our QRS system, and so that is what makes them eligible to be participating in our infant-toddler coaching. So if they are enrolled in our QRS, if they are taking children on subsidy, and if they have infants and toddlers, then they would be eligible to receive this coaching. And I believe it's somewhere around 87% of our programs that are serving infants and toddlers meet those eligibility requirements. So we have 4 main focus areas. It's delivered in a relationship-based professional development climate, where we have one of our focus areas would be quality environment using our ERS in class. We often find that this is a good place to get started, as early care and education providers are, again, under that mandate to rate at a certain level. Although we know it's an exciting deadline, it has caused a bit of anxiety for some of those providers. And so we start there oftentimes, and then we have other initiatives. One of them is a universal developmental screening initiative, where we provide some wraparound support for our providers to begin implementing a developmental screening program, where they train. We offer free training, free state-approved training for our teachers. We train everyone in the facility in developmental screening as to why it's important and how to talk to parents about it. We then help them put on a parent engagement activity where they can introduce the topic to parents, and in some cases actually have parents fill out screening tools right there, and then work with them to talk with parents about the results, whether their child has an area of concern or not. So our idea is that we encourage them to screen all children, starting with their youngest children, rather than just the 1 or 2 they might be concerned about. So this has been really, really successful, and we've trained over 900 providers in this, coming from a state landscape where there has not been a focus on developmental screening. It was actually a very taboo subject to even talk about for a while. So we're pretty excited about that. We also do offer some infant and early childhood mental health consultation on a referral basis. This often is used for in our infant and toddler classrooms with 2-year-olds that are getting expelled because of biting, and we know this is kind of a nationwide issue, particularly for those younger ages that are getting expelled. That's oftentimes their issue, and we've actually had some qualitative data that shows us that this is preventing kids from being expelled, so we're very excited about that. And we also use filming interactions to nurture development, which is another acronym. We love to use acronyms. It's called FIND. And coaches go in and they film teachers actually just doing their regular in their day, and then they go back and they show them where they have been successful in participating in serve and return interactions. So it is a great program out of the University of Oregon Stress Neurobiology and Prevention Lab, and we've seen some great results from that. Increased teacher-child serve and return and conversational turns. We've seen increases in class scores. It's very, very exciting work that we're doing.
Great, Roxanne.
Overview.
It's a little bit more than 3 minutes, but we'll give you the extra minute. So thanks for sharing. That's, again, exciting work happening in both Georgia and Washington, and I think Shonda's on with us now, and I'd like for Shonda just to kind of back up a little bit and give us a quick little overview of Grow NJ Kids as she talks about the infant and toddler work that they're doing. Shonda, are you with us? Okay, looks like we're still having some problems, so we're going to keep moving along so we can make sure we preserve our time frame. So now we're going to switch up a little bit and talk about the focus of the school age in the quality systems. So Roxanne, we're going to bounce back to you and talk a little bit of what you're doing on the school age front.
Sure. So as you may have heard earlier, our QRS is primarily focused on birth to 5, but there has been some work in Washington with our Schools Out Washington network for many, many years around high-quality coaching and supports for school-age providers. And so we had a pilot, again, very new, between 2016 and 2018, so really it just finished up, where we worked with a lot of community partners. We worked with Schools Out Washington, with Child Care Aware of Washington, with the University of Washington, to really look at what would it look like if we had some quality elements that we were able to recognize, particularly for providers who are providing care both in environments where they're perhaps serving ages birth to 12 or 13, which is how our licensed child care centers can provide care for school-age children, as well as our after-school programs, which are primarily 6 through 12 or 13, as well as maybe some of those community-based programs that are not licensed, but we know that they're providing after-school enrichment activities. And so we had an expanded learning opportunity quality initiative pilot that we conducted during that time frame of 2016 to 2018. And what we did was we provided some targeted coach training. We did, the University of Washington data collectors did some observations in those programs to see how could they develop training that would be applicable to after-school providers, as well as looking at what would data collection look like. Using the Schools Out Washington had worked with the Weikart Center for Youth Program Quality to help develop a data collection tool, which our team crosswalked with some of our early achiever standards and the tools that we were using, and have come up with what they call the quality seal for after-school programs. And so this was a really exciting cross-sector work that we did. It's very, very new, and we are going forward with looking at what this can look like for programs that would like to participate in a quality initiative, the quality seal. For what does that look like for programs that are already serving children birth to 5? So we know they're already involved in our QRAS system, but they may have a school-age classroom. And so that's the first area that we're going to explore. And again, it's very new. We haven't really developed it fully fleshed out or had any programs participate in that project yet, but it's coming up. It's on the radar for us.
Great. Thank you, Roxanne. And I think that's what we'll hear from our other presenters today as well, because the school age focus is relatively new, which we talked about the trend and the tide starting to change a bit even for those states that included the school age care programs in the early inception of their programs, but really needing to rethink how they're structured and how they're able to engage those programs. So I'm going to do one quick check to see if Shonda has been able to join us. Okay.
Hello?
So,
Hello?
yes, Shonda, hello.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm surprised it's working.
We're happy to hear your voice.
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure what I did differently, but I'm glad it's working now.
Great. So, Shonda, we're talking actually about the school age program. So what I'd like for you to do is if you would talk about school age, and then we'll circle back and let you talk a little bit about infants and toddlers after we wrap up this section, since we're talking about school age right now.
Sure. Okay. Well, here in New Jersey, our school age programs are not a part of our QRIS, but we do still want to provide them with an opportunity and supports to work on their quality. So what we did was in July of this year, we actually added some funds to our a contract that we have with our School Age Care Coalition agency here, which is NJSAC, the New Jersey School Age Care Coalition. So we've contracted with them over the period of years to provide some professional development to our school age providers. They did a lot of TA with them as well. We wanted to really expand that and provide them with the resources to actually go out, work with more programs, go on site to provide them with some technical assistance, specifically around items that programs feel like they may need assistance with. For example, maybe implementing our school age standards. So we have 3 school age coaches that we have employed through that agency. It's a regional model that we're currently using. This really is the first year, and actually not even a full year. So we're really piloting to see how it goes and what the needs of the programs are. So there's 3 staff. They go out. They work with programs that either self-refer. Licensing can also make referrals if they feel like the programs are in need of some technical assistance in order to come into compliance. We also have, as a way to link them to our QRS system, they also can receive referrals from programs that may be rated, and they have a school age component that they want to look at and work on with their quality, even though they're not a part of our system. So they really can get referrals from a variety of sources in terms of going in, working with the program, helping them take a look at their environment, look at the activities that they're doing, and then work with them to ensure that they're providing some quality after-school programming. We also provide an annual conference. We partially fund an annual conference that they do here, and what we've done also is offer scholarships to our school-age providers to attend that statewide conference. And we actually just had one a few weeks ago. It was really very well attended. We had over 400 attendees, reaching over 35,000 children. Part of the pilot that we're doing with our school-age coalition also involves KIT, which is Kids Included Together. It's a national organization, so they do a lot of work around inclusion. So we're also doing a little pilot with our school-age coaches, our child care resource and referral agencies, and KIT, where they'll get monthly phone calls where it gives them an opportunity to talk about the struggles and challenges that programs may be having. They also have access to some resources that they could tap into to share with the programs, as well as with other staff within our CCR&R. So, it's really exciting. Our long-term goal definitely is to include our school-age providers into our QRIS. But in the meantime, we are looking at ways that we can extend and embed some of the things that we are doing within our quality system to our school-age providers, even though they're not a part of our rated system.
Great. Thanks, Shonda. And I know that you all are really working on your relationship with the 21st learning community in your state, and I think that that's something that's coming along and really working well. Is that not?
Yes. We have actually participated in a few PLCs that's been held by our the National TA Centers, and our 21st Century Partners are always at the table as part of our 5-member team. We also just last year had a statewide quality meeting, and this was really the first time we had an opportunity to bring all of our quality vendors together to really talk about what's happening within our state, not just within our department, but across our sister agencies as well, so that everybody can really have an idea of what's happening around quality and the programs and supports that are out there to help move programs in that direction. And our 21st Century Partners was a part of that as well, and they actually have we've been in conversations with them around, keeping that going and then maybe hosting our next meeting. So they are definitely at the table, and we're always looking for ways to really engage and partner with them, as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Shonda, and so good to hear your voice. So, Christy, we're going to move on and share with us about what you're doing in Quality Rated with the school age group.
Sure. So our quality rated system does allow school age programs to have the opportunity to participate. And as programs are going through the process, one of the things that we've heard from many different providers is that they feel like there's not a lot of training opportunities specific to the needs of school age professionals available in Georgia. And so we really want to focus on how we think about providing additional supports, especially because as we've looked at our data, we know that 44% of our subsidy scholarships in Georgia are in school age programs. So we know that it's very important to make sure that these school age programs are high quality and that they have access to training opportunities that help them to maintain quality. So one of the things one of our first steps was to hire a school age and youth program specialist who has really helped us here as an agency to understand the specific needs of school age programs and school age professionals and how that differs from the needs of our birth to 5 workforce. And she has also helped us to facilitate really strong partnerships with our Georgia State After School Network and other school age programs in Georgia. So where we've really started is to engage in some exploratory research, if you will, to better understand what these programs look like and what their needs are. So over the summer, we engaged in a summer research project with 50 programs that had already gone through the quality rated process. But their school age programs were not included in the actual rating because they were at multi-age sites. And so something that you want to know about quality rated is if it is a standalone school age program, then they get observed with the SACRS U, the school age ERS tool. If it is a multi-age program, the observations usually do not include an observation of the school age classroom. So we wanted to understand and look at those classrooms that maybe hadn't been observed as part of the rating to see what those programs look like and what their needs were. So over the summer, we went in, we did observations, we had a licensing consultant and a quality rated assessor go in and visit the sites, and we also did surveys with the programs, and the idea is to really understand both from the tool and looking at the data from the tool, but also hearing from the programs themselves, the staff and leadership there, what do they feel like their needs are? And so we're still in the process of examining that data, but from here, what we know our next steps will be is to replicate this research during the school year, because one of the things we know is that a school age program, what's happening in the summer and what's happening during the school year after school hours looks very different. And so we want to understand, does our training focus need to look different depending on what the program's hours are and whether they're open during the summer and things of that nature. So we're really in a fact-finding exploratory stage at this point in time. We've been able to really get great participation from our school age programs. They understand that this is going to be really helpful for them in the long run. And our Georgia Statewide After School Network has been very supportive and has been able to provide some stipends to these programs to allow them to participate. So more information and details to come about where this takes us once we have the data.
Great, Christy, and thanks for sharing that information. I think from all of you're all in those stages of building those relationships and which are going to be key for building your practice and your policies around inclusion of school age programs in your quality systems. So thank you all for sharing that. So now we're going to take a little bit of a detour, and we're going to hear from our audience today. So we're putting up a few polls, and I think, Holly, you're going to process the polls for our audience.
And that will be me, Susan.
I'm sorry, Susan. Susan.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's time really for you to be able to share your focuses or strengths. And you see that there are 3 chat pods up, and you can add things that are an area of focus or strength on infant toddler or on school age or general reflections that you might have from the state panel discussion. I see people typing, which is great. Elizabeth was fast up with infant toddler learning communities and coaches. And you may want to add your state in. I see that Gwen, for example, added QRS includes infants, toddlers, and they have specific standards. So if you pop your state up, then somebody knows maybe how they might be able to contact you if they'd love to hear more. New York has an infant toddler network system. Infant toddler specialist. Yeah, just pop your state right in there as you go. Quality coaching system for early childhood and school age in Alaska. Thanks. And there's some ideas coming in the school age category now as well. We'll be capturing all of these chat comments too, so that you'll have them in case you want to go back and check in with anybody. So here's Claudette from New Hampshire. CCDF-funded contract specific to after school on professional development and TA. Ebony from New Jersey, the quality coaching that Shonda mentioned, thanks. And Texas has a QRS that includes school age and has specific standards. Crystal saying it was great to hear about the funding opportunities and incentives that have been tied to quality ratings. Mary Beth's asking about mixed age groupings as well. And Melissa's asking for more information about the consumer website in Washington. Colorado has EQUIT, I think it's called, Expanding Quality for Infants and Toddlers Specific Training. And Monique is saying she loves the intensive nature of the infant toddlers. So I think we'll allow one more minute for people to finish typing in their ideas. So one last idea perhaps, and then we're going to be able to move back to the panel. Amy's saying she loved hearing about the different QRS pathways for different types of after-school and out-of-school time programs in Georgia. Thanks, Lisa, for that correction. EQIT, thank you. Okay, and I think we're set. It looks like people have stopped typing, and so I turn it back to you, Zelda.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you all for participating in that. There's lots of things going on and great things to hear about. I know that Roxanne said she needed more time to talk about this. I mean, we could spend a couple of sessions just talking about the age continuum. We do spend a lot of time talking about 3- and 4-year-olds, but this has been really great, and to get your feedback has been very helpful because our team will take those pods and look at what's happening in the other states and hopefully have other opportunities to hear from more of you. So we're going to transition now and from the systems and talk about what really matters most in quality systems, and that is the workforce. So each day, a dedicated band of women and men have this monumental responsibility of providing care and learning for nearly 10 million children. Yes, that's right, 10 million children from birth to school age whose parents are at work or school. That's a lot of children needing child care. And this workforce holds this heavy and important burden of safeguarding the health and well-being of our country's youngest children. So research tells us that these individuals are the most critical determinants of the quality of care each of these 10 million children will receive throughout the day. So while quality frameworks and systems have evolved, and we've kind of talked about some of those tools that are also measuring the environment and quality, those have evolved over time. But one of the most instrumental and critical factors that has remained the same is the need for supportive and nurturing caregivers. So while most states are making great strides to create child care conditions worthy of our children, so looking at the environment and those types of things, in parallel fashion now we have, through the Child Care and Development Fund, the opportunities to create and support workforce conditions that are worthy of the practitioners and that are needed to provide the care that we all know that all children deserve. So I'm going to just give a brief overview of the national landscape, and then we will continue with our presenters and hear how they're bringing to fruition some of these essential workforce conditions that are needed to recruit, retain, and fairly compensate a qualified infant and toddler and school-age workforce. So first, let's look at the landscape for infants and toddlers of the workforce. So we have many, many opportunities to strengthen and focus on infant and toddler workforce issues and specific workforce trends and efforts within our systems. So we know that QRS, in addition to other child care policy drivers, can be a strong catalyst for improving infant and toddler workforce conditions across the country. So we know that there are critical shortages and high turnover in infant toddler caregivers. At every education level, there is a significant wage penalty for teachers working with infants and toddlers. So compared to their counterparts that are serving children that are 3 to 5, they are not compensated at the same level. Over 86% of center-based teaching staff working with infants and toddlers earn less than $15 an hour. And this is compared to 67% of those working only with pre-K children 3 to 5 that haven't entered kindergarten yet. But in spite of those numbers, there are efforts to improve conditions for the infant and toddler workforce. So we know that 50 states report providing training and professional development to enhance child care providers' ability to provide developmentally appropriate services for infants and toddlers. And then 42 states have reported that they are providing some coaching, mentoring, or other TA on this age group's unique needs for statewide and territory-wide networks and qualified infant and toddler specialists. So there is work happening, although there is a gap. I think the work is, there is intentional work in reducing that gap between the infant and toddler workforce and the pre-K workforce. Now let's take a quick look at the school-age workforce. So first of all, I just want to put out a caveat that it's important to be cautious about what we say about the school-age workforce because we don't really have a broad or current data on the workforce. We haven't done a recent survey of the out-of-school time. But what we do know about the after-school and school summer workforce is that it's primarily part-time, temporary, with little formal education. And they may be high school or college students, artists, or others who just opt to work part-time. But along with that, there is a group, the leadership core group, that is highly educated, they're salaried, full-time, and long-term. There are a number of programs, especially like the 21st Century Community Learning Center programs and summer programs that do hire teachers that work within the school day as well. So that's part of that part-time workforce. So when we think about training for the workforce, there are only a few higher education programs in school-age or youth development. So staff with higher education degrees are oftentimes drawn from allied professions such as certified education, social work, or youth development. So staff with higher education degrees are often drawn from these professions, which is great, and so that gives us that diversity in experience and education, but there's also this gap. So we have to have this caution about making sure that they have access to a robust range of school-age specific training along with their former training. On the positive side, even though we're working with a part-time staff, that we have learned that in general, although there is low compensation, staff job satisfaction scores are very high for a school-age workforce. So we've we have this school-age workforce that we're dealing with before and after care, and then comes summer, which offers more challenges. So we go from 3 to 5 hours before and after school day to now an 8 to 10 hour day in the summer. So programs are really pressed to bring on a lot of brand new, unseasoned staff in the summer with little time to train them. So with those considerations, these workforce features do have implications for professional development. So for example, if someone is part-time and they are most likely juggling other jobs or responsibilities, school, what have you, how do they fit in training in their busy lives? So online training opportunities do help. Some states are also providing PD credit for staff that are receiving coaching for quality improvement, and this helps because they're able to get training right in the classroom where they are. Also, we rely heavily on this leadership core, the ones that are educated, that are anchors. This full-time staff are the ones that really support and hold up the program, even though they're dealing with the average turnover of 40%. So this is critical to really invest in that leadership core group and build some strategies around them to help retain and support them. So now that we've had a quick look at the landscape for infants and toddlers and school age in the workforce, we're going to go back to our panelists and have them share some of the initiatives that they're working on. So we're going to start out with Shonda. Share with us what workforce supports your state has to strengthen your quality systems. And also, Shonda, if you would touch on, because we've missed some of this, if you would touch on some of the work that you're doing with the infant and toddler workforce to strengthen their quality efforts.
Sure. So New Jersey here, we have a really robust offering for our workforce to really help support the staffing that works in our programs. And all of our incentives and our scholarships and things are actually administered through our workforce registry here. In New Jersey, we call it the NJ Workforce Registry. So they administer all of this for us. So some of the things that we really offer in terms of support to strengthen our quality system, we do provide and offer scholarships to programs. These programs do have to be serving subsidy children. And they can be serving subsidy children in our QRIS, or they can just be serving subsidy children. But that's really the most important piece, is we want to ensure that those centers that are serving our kids have access to support that further along their staffing qualifications and PD. So we do use our CCDBG dollars to offer scholarships for that, so they can get scholarships if they're trying to go for their CDA, if they're trying to go for an associate's degree, a college degree, or P3. And, just over the past few years, we're really seeing most of our dollars are really going towards that CDA. That seems to be where the majority of our folks are going towards in terms of trying to get some additional credentials. We also provide supports around book stipends. So if they are, if they do have a previous scholarship or a current scholarship, and they need some assistance in purchasing books, they are able to get a book stipend from us as well. We also have an infant toddler credential. We've had that here for a number of years, and we have over 100 people within our state that actually have the infant toddler credential, and it's also something that's in our licensing regulations. So it was something that we was able to embed into that, and we do provide scholarships for people who might be pursuing their infant toddler credential. But part of the credential requires 2 college courses. So we will provide scholarships to get those college coursework if need be. We also have early learning guidelines within our state. So we provide some support in the form of coaching, mentoring, and training around the early learning guidelines. So any of our programs serving infants and toddlers, specifically those, particularly those who want to be a part of our Growing J Kids, that's really like our base. They got to be at level 2. They have to be implementing our early learning guidelines. So we do offer a lot of support for our programs around that through our infant toddler specialists. We also have some school-age standards. So through our school-age coaches that I talked about earlier, they are able to work with them if a program is interested in training their staff around those and implementing those into their program. Last year, we also created ITSAAC, our School Age Care Coalition agency, actually created some online modules for our school age standards. For those who can't get out to training, they're able to tap into that online. So that's been really beneficial and tapped into a lot as well. We also have formed a higher ed committee here in our state. We want to start taking a look at director competencies to see how we can really support them as a leader of their agency. So that's something we're looking at as well. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our directors that, a lot of what we're offering in terms of workforce supports is used directed towards our teacher or assistant teachers. So they really want something that's really there and designed to support them. So we are looking at some competencies around that, as well as the fact that the competencies we are looking at might be impacting how ready our programs are to get into our QRIS. So I think that would be helpful for us all the way around. We also offer stipends as a support to our programs, so if they're getting rated, they do get $1,000 after they get rated, so that's a little incentive and a sort of a thank you for, all the hard work that they do going through the system. We also have really robust trainings that we offer out there. So we have a lot of our health and safety trainers. So we do offer the required CCDBG ones, but then through our CCRNRs and the lead trainers, many of them are building upon that as well to offer them that whole progressive piece that CCDBG requires us to offer. We do a lot of training in our state around the ASQ. So, our CCRNRs get training on that. We're offering that to our programs because it's built into our quality rate improvement system. So, we have a really big focus upon that. We recently contracted with our child care resource and referral agencies to do books, balls, and blocks. If states are familiar with that, that is really all about the ASQ, only they do it in a really interactive way with the parents and the children. So they will be doing that in our state as well, each of our child care resource and referral agencies. In terms of our infantile specialists, we are doing we train them in PITC. We actually just expanded our network. We actually had a regional model up until this year, and so we actually just this year expanded them into one in every county. So each of our CCRNRs now have a dedicated full-time infantile specialist whose role is to work with programs within their counties that are serving children to really help them take a look at their services and their quality and working with them and their staff to really raise that whole infantile piece up. We'll also bring in the growing brain from 0 to 3. So our infantile specialists will actually be trained in that in April of this year. So we wanted to do that, and then we will roll out some growing the brain trainings towards the end of next year. Once they all get that training. So that's something that, we're really trying to support our network to ensure that they're supporting our programs with all the best practices.
Great.
In terms of our school age, they have the Search Institute, Asset Builder. They also are were trained in that as well.
Great. Thanks, Shonda. And I'm going to move us right along. We're getting a little compressed for time. So, Angela, if you would share with us what's happening in Washington with your workforce efforts. And so I'm not sure if Angela's having some difficulty, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to Christy, and we'll bounce back to Angela. So Christy, if you would share with us your workforce efforts in Georgia.
Sure. So in Georgia, one of the things that we've been trying to think about is how do we leverage existing systems in Georgia better support targeted audiences of our workforce, such as infant toddler teachers and school-age professionals, as we've been talking about today. So I just wanted to share a little bit about our DeKalb Scholars program and how we're leveraging that program to support those members of the workforce. So just to give a little bit of history, in Georgia, our licensing rules require that lead teachers in a licensed child care learning center and family child care learning home providers have a minimum of a CDA. And then also in Georgia, we have, through our technical college system of Georgia, we do have stackable credentials that are available to our workforce. So it starts with a technical certificate of credit, which is the content is about the same amount of time to take as you would a CDA, and then we build up from there to a technical college diploma, associate's degree, and then on up from there. And those programs do offer an infant toddler specialization. And then also in our quality rated system, as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, we do give points in the structural quality for the credential levels of the directors and the teachers in the program. And so taking all of that into account, we wanted to look at our Decal Scholars program to understand how we could provide financial supports to our workforce. So our Decal Scholars program is, and if you want more information after this, you can visit the website. It's decalscholars.com. Provides educational counseling to our workforce to help them understand what credential options are available to them, what might be available in their community or online, and how to make the best informed choice based on their role. So specialists who provide educational counseling will help them think through, if you are an infant toddler teacher, is there an infant toddler specific program that's convenient to you that you might want to pursue? We also offer scholarships to individuals who are going through the program, who are going through a credential program. So we do actually offer scholarships for them to offset the cost of tuition. Most of our participants in our Decal Scholars program who receive scholarships do not pay any tuition. We help them apply for grants, and then we pick up the rest. So most of our participants don't pay much out of pocket, if anything, for their credential. We also have a few bonus and incentives programs. Once they complete their degree, then there's additional bonus payments that are available to them. So one of the things we've been CCDF quality funds to provide targeted supports for infant toddler teachers who are participating in the Decal Scholars program. So if they're an infant toddler teacher and they are pursuing an infant toddler credential or degree, then in addition to the supports that are already available to them, we provide additional financial supports. So their stipends that are available to them are higher. And then in addition, we also pay a stipend to the program that they work for to help offset the cost of substitutes, so that that teacher can come out of a classroom as needed to attend class or to study or to prepare for an exam or whatever they might need to do. And we are finding that that incentive paid to the program has been really helpful in helping the program support teachers who are going through a credential program. So that has been really successful, and we're really excited to be able to use our CCDF funds to support that. In addition, we also have some supports available that are for bilingual individuals. So if you are bilingual in Georgia and you get a degree or credential, then again, we offer additional supports to you that are above and beyond what the regular Decal Scholars program offers. And the reason for that is we know that in Georgia, as I'm sure in many states, we need more bilingual teachers. And in Georgia, we also find that many of our refugee communities and our bilingual communities, they're really interested in having teachers or family child care providers who understand their background, their culture, speak their language. And so we want to make sure that families have access to that. So we are also offering additional supports to bilingual individuals to get a CDA or a technical certificate of credit or what have you and then move through the process. We also offer additional financial supports to trainers who would offer a CDA in another language. So if the trainer's bilingual, and they want to offer a CDA in a language other than English, then we also pay more to the trainer. We cover more of the training costs so that the bilingual individuals can access those trainings at less expense to them. Now, what I will say is this is all really exciting for our infant toddler teachers, and we are very proud of the progress that we've made. And we hope that we can learn more from the school age research project that I mentioned earlier to think about what it looks like for school-age professionals. I think it's got to look very different, and we've got a lot of questions there that we still need to answer. We have aligned our workforce knowledge and competencies in Georgia with the Georgia's After School and Youth Development Standards. So we are looking at understanding what the competencies are that are needed and how they might overlap. And then we hope to use that along with the research I mentioned before to better understand how we now apply these additional supports to our school-age professionals.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks for sharing all that information, and we'll look forward to hearing when you get that work done on the school-age side as well. So thank you for sharing. So we're going to move right on to Angela. We are running right up until the last portion of our session here. So Angela, are you on?
Hi, I think I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, great. So in Washington, you've heard a lot from Roxanne, but I'll touch on a few of the highlights that we've been working on recently. One is that we've been really doing a lot more around our work with relationship-based professionals, so those that are coaching, mentoring, providing consultation. We've had, I'll just use the word RBPD, if that's not too much of an acronym for now, but so standing for Relationship-Based Professional Development. We've had competencies for many years, and we just now went into a new phase of having standards for those providing that type of professional learning, and really looking at how do we leverage those standards into sincere pathways and career development plans for the field of everyone who's providing these support roles. And the reason why I chose to open up the workforce element with this update is that we know that a lot of the retention in the field and work satisfaction and ongoing commitment to learning as well as sustainable learning happens within the context of relationships. And we really want to make sure that we're supporting both the workers themselves who are providing direct service as well as those in administrative roles to have the skills that are going to best leverage that learning in that relationship that ultimately impacts child outcomes. And so with that, we're just continuing to look at building in various specializations, which infant and toddler, infant mental health, home visiting, and other specific subject matters will be right up there. We are working on a practice-based coaching specialization that will be rolled out first. And so that's something that's really been going on, and we'll see a lot more work with the career pathway in this coming calendar year. Since 2012, we've also had what we call stackable certificates in early childhood education. And we are looking at how we can build in the relationship-based work into those as well. Currently, we've been implementing these stackable certificates since 2012, which we started out with some pilot communities serving, roughly 60 students at that time. And in this last academic year, we were able to serve with just this one particular scholarship program, 1,650 students across the state. And so that is a credit-bearing stackable certificate ranging in 3 certificates, anywhere from 12 credits, which is the first one, to 47 credits, which is the third one, and would get them halfway through an associate degree in ECE. At that point, they would continue on. We've also, that doesn't include our bachelor's scholarship program, and we're fortunate enough to have a good investment from our state to help to sustain some of the scholarship resources that are available for our workforce. We have close partnerships with our colleges, which allow us to have continuity across the state. So all of the community colleges with ECE programs offer the certificates, as well as what we call a point of contact, and that's pretty much a personal navigator to help people with advising and supports. The final main topic that I'll leave with you guys today is around the concept of compensation. If you're anywhere in the conversation of workforce, you know that compensation is right up there, meaning both the pay that people make, whether or not they get retirement benefits or medical benefits, and that's something that Washington, as well as many other states, have been paying a lot of attention to. This last year, actually, or the beginning of this calendar year, we produced a compensation report that was asked for us by the legislature to talk about how do we really support the retention of our workforce and getting them to a place where we can sustain the diversity, grow the diversity, and really recognize the individuals that we have. So what happened with the end of that report is a second call from the legislature came into place, this time with the Department of Commerce, that said, hey, take this compensation report and see what it would take to get us to implement those recommendations and get us to K-12 parity by 2024. So that's the work that's happening right now. Within the compensation report, you'll see some information about specializations and such as like infant toddler, for example, supporting diverse learners with dual language and other specific community needs. And so we're really trying to think about how do we build in the flexibility of a salary scale, because there is a recommended salary scale in there, to support what we need in Washington State to be able to kind of be reflective of the various communities and programs that we're thinking of. And so that compensation report is available on our website, and you're welcome to take a look at that. And you'll notice there's a benefits package, which is inclusive of retirement, a salary scale, which is the wage, and other supports. There's a second recommendation for expanding the substitute pool, which Roxanne mentioned earlier, that we do have a statewide substitute pool in place. And then a third recommendation about helping our working connections policy, which is our child care subsidy policy, to be responsive to the number of individuals who want to go to school but have a worker requirement, and what if they're in college and they need child care. And so that's the third recommendation in that compensation report. So that's a little bit of what's happening now in Washington for workforce. I realize we were tight on time, so I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted me to dig deeper into.
I wish I could, Angela, but you're right, we're tight on time. But I think we may have to have a second webinar following up with all the great things that you all have been sharing. And I want to just take the time right now before we move on and thank our presenters today. And move it back to Holly. Thank you, Shonda, Laurel, and Angela, Christy, and Roxanne for sharing your information that you're doing in your state around infants and toddlers and school-age programs. So, Holly, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Zelda, and thank you for seamlessly sending us through the session with your moderation skills and keeping us on this neat timeline that we had here today. And participants, this is where we want to hear a little bit more from you before we go. You've heard the inspiring stories from your four peers today about their strengths in quality systems and workforce systems and working in quality through the age continuum. We want you to share in the chat pods right now, what supports does your state or territory provide the infant and toddler caregiving workforce? What challenges still remain there? What supports does your state and territory provide for school-age workforce? What challenges still remain there? We really appreciate this feedback and your responses and comments, as we can hear from each other and learn from each other, obviously, in this platform. But we are so excited about the follow-up conversation next week that we're going to have with you. And these responses and comments can help us plan and facilitate a follow-up session next week that better meets your needs. So we appreciate you taking the time to give some responses there. And as those responses are there, I'm just going to share a couple of other quick announcements. Again, I want to thank Zelda, our moderator. Thank you so much for facilitating this conversation. And I want to tell you, Roxanne and Angela and Shonda and Christy, we could hear your heart for your work come through in the stories that you told. And we know you could each easily have an hour and a half, have the floor for that time. And you condensed these really meaningful stories of how you're intentionally doing this work and thinking of babies and school-agers, as well as all children in your systems. And we were super inspired by hearing your stories. So thank you for going out on a limb to share your stories with us. We want to, again, share the excitement for the follow-up session, which is December 18th from 1 to 2:30. We are going to be taking some time to think about what Shonda and Angela and Christy and Roxanne have shared today. And again, the issues that you're typing in here right now in terms of your workforce and for babies and toddlers and in school age, and the needs that you have for discussing next week. And we're going to just continue to share and build on the ideas that were shared by our amazing state panel today. You can, we welcome you to next week to call in for one of the age-specific breakout sessions, or you can call in to both if you want to. You feel free to do that. And we want you to know that a follow-up email will be sent to you with the URL hyperlink for the time breakdown to register for one or either or both of the follow-up sessions. So we also And the next slide, after you have a few more seconds or minutes to respond to these challenges and support pod questions, we want to remind you we are not done with our Virtual Infant Toddler School Age Child Care Institute webinar series. The third webinar is how you're going to kick off your new year, hopefully, in an excited fashion with a really topic that's in the training and professional development and coaching conversations that everyone's having in your state systems. It's on trauma and resilience and the role of child care providers in the workforce. So that is the topic for next year. And I'm just going to take a look at some of these responses here. Your challenges are many and your supports are, luckily, the good news, it seems like just as many here. I see lots of coaching, professional development, training. What a huge theme, exciting thing. A theme that many of you have. Some compensation and workforce conditions initiatives. I see lots of folks sharing. There's some challenges with money, with the money issue, so for those to support the workforce. And let's see, supports. We've got theme of really quality assurance and credentialing and qualifications. It seems to be a strong support for the school-age workforce. And then looking like compensation and low pay is still a challenge across your workforces as well for babies and for school-agers, the workforce that support both of those. But we're seeing, lots of promising supports here with lots of relationship-based professional development, as mentioned on today's call, and lots of technical assistance that you're working hard to support for your state. It looks like through the quality rating and improvement systems and quality systems, and then just in some other policy drivers of your state systems as well. And also I see the theme of identifying family child care and supporting them. So thank you everyone for participating in those 4 polls, and we wish we could leave these up. We know though that this conversation will continue, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from as many of you on the December 18th call as well. So we invite you to register for that in the follow-up email you'll receive for the December 18th and then the January 8th webinar. And my many thanks to you, the participants today, for taking the time out of your day to do the work that you do for children and the workforce and families. And we really appreciate your inspiring chat and questions and reflections that you had throughout the day. We are leaving you with some feedback for us, a couple of questions that we'd love for you to respond to let us know how we can better support your professional learning and how we did today on this second session, quality. So with that, we'll leave you with this poll up, and you can respond to that. There are a couple of resource slides at the end of this session. You will get a recording of this webinar and a URL where you can share at your leisure and listen again and again. So on behalf of the whole webinar team and our presenters, our facilitators, and moderator Zelda, we thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you on the December 18th follow-up call and then on January 8th. Thank you, everyone. Take good care.